My F32 friend, F32, has been lying about being a nurse for 10 years. Using a throwaway so I don't dox myself. I, F32, have a friend from high school, Amy, F32. We are 14 years out of high school and 10 years out of college. We went to a small private high school that was pretty intense, the kind of place where people always ask, "Where are you going to college?" instead of if. After graduation I went to a big state school a few hours away from our hometown. Amy decided she wanted to study nursing, so she decided to go to the small university in our hometown since it has a great program and she could save money living at home. We stayed friends through college. We'd get dinner when I was home on weekends and she drove up to visit my school once or twice a year. After graduating I moved across the country for graduate school. She stayed in our hometown and told me she'd been accepted to a competitive residency program for new nursing grads at a local hospital. My mom is a nurse in the same hospital system Amy started at and told me it was a big deal for Amy to get in because the program has less than a 10% acceptance rate. I was really proud. We drifted apart a little bit when I moved, but she still stood up in my wedding and we tried to catch up every time I came home. I ended up settling down near my grad school and have a career I love, think accountant, lawyer, doctor, etc. I tried to check on Amy throughout the pandemic because I knew she was in the ICU and I saw how hard it was for my mom in a non-critical care department. Amy would tell me horror stories about how traumatic it was, and how it was so hard not to be able to talk about work because a bad day for most people might mean sending follow-up emails, but for her it probably meant someone died. I have other friends who worked ICU and that sounded pretty consistent with what they said. Last summer she told me she was starting to think about leaving nursing and going to school for something less intense like business. Fast forward to about a month ago. I was following a news story from the state we grew up in, think true crime, and people in the comments started arguing about whether or not someone involved was a nurse. One person posted the link to the state nursing licensure database. I clicked it and was trying to see how much information it would provide about someone, so I put in Amy's name, and nothing came up. I would have let it go except I remembered that about 5 years ago my mom had looked for Amy in their system database and didn't see her, so asked me if Amy had switched jobs. Amy said she hadn't, so I assumed my boomer mother just couldn't use an Outlook address book. Sorry mom. I tried to find a logical explanation. Did she get married and not tell me? No, maiden names come up. Did she lose her license? No, it seemed like you could see suspended or inactive licenses. Did she have a different legal name? No, I've traveled with her and seen her airline ticket and ID. I sent a text to ask her to remind me what hospital she worked at. She responded and told me she had switched to another hospital in our hometown. I found a friend of a friend whose mom was a nurse at the hospital Amy said she was working at, and sure enough, they didn't know her and couldn't find her in their system. So I started digging. Eventually I was able to find the grad list from Amy's college for our year. She wasn't on it, or any of the 3 years before or after. And I realized I had never seen a picture of her at her graduation. I'm pretty sure she at least enrolled at one point because I went to a volleyball game with her our freshman year of college and met friends from her program. I dug more and found out from court records that she's had financial troubles. She's been sued by debt collection agencies multiple times in the past few years. And eventually I was able to figure out what she actually does. She's the office manager for a dental practice. A totally normal and not worth hiding job. Her bio on the practice's website said she's been working there for 8 years. At this point in my life Amy is the only person from our high school class that I keep in contact with, but she's still close with a few people who ended up back in our hometown, and I follow those people on Instagram. I checked their pages and at least as of 2020 they thought she was a nurse because one captioned a photo, "Happy birthday to our favorite nurse. Thanks for taking all of our frantic medical questions." Amy had removed the tag so it didn't show up on her pages. I found something Amy's mom posted about a year after we would have graduated college that tagged Amy and had an RN pin in it, so it seems like at one point her parents thought she was a nurse too. She's no longer friends with her parents on social media, so maybe they had a falling out? My head was spinning because no way Amy would lie to me, but then I started thinking back on the last 10 years and I'm an idiot. Have you heard the "dead dog in a duffel bag" story? Google it if not, it's a famous urban legend. Our freshman year of college she told me that happened to her and I thought maybe she had embellished but didn't realize it was an urban legend. Last summer I met her new boyfriend and she said, "Oh yeah, he really wants me to quit nursing and go to business school, so don't bring up nursing or we'll fight." Freshman year of high school someone spilled soda all over one of my textbooks in the library after I left it sitting on a table with Amy. She said she had gotten up to go to the bathroom and came back and found it like that. Like, I'm so freaking dumb. So far I haven't said a word to Amy or anyone who knows her besides my parents. Some people have said, Maybe she flunked out of college and was just embarrassed and thought you would judge her, but obviously you're going to support her no matter what. Others have said, confront her and see if there is a good explanation. Others still have said, just ghost her, time to cut and run. She's texted me a few times recently and I just haven't known what to say. Hello, I realize your life is a lie? TLDR, my high school friend has been lying about graduating from college and becoming a nurse for 10 years, to me and others, and I realized she's probably been telling smaller lies as long as I've known her. I think I need to tell her that I know. What is the best way to approach this conversation? I feel like I would cry on a phone call, but texting feels like dropping a bomb on her, and I'm mad, but I'm not trying to upset her or send her into a spiral. Schedule a dental cleaning for her office. I don't think I would continue the friendship. This is a whole other level of lying. As an ICU nurse who actually worked through the pandemic, damn, I wish she would have just shown up for a shift or two. We could have used the warm bodies' tears of joy. But in reality that's very messed up and kind of sad. I would text her, but in a non-accusatory manner if you want to maintain the friendship. Start by saying that you had looked up her license when you were messing around with the database and nothing came up. Then simply ask if there was anything she would like to tell you. Leaves everything open-ended, and based on her response you can either choose to continue the friendship or move on. Some people lie because they don't know how to stop, not because they want to hurt others. I wish people could understand that when people lie, it's a deep-seated need to be liked. They don't feel they're special or important enough just being themselves, so they lie in order to gain acceptance. It often stems from the conditioning in childhood, and many liars have no idea how harmful it is to others' trust in them because they weren't taught they have that kind of power. In fact, they had so little. This is one way they have to gain it back. Maybe ask her why she felt she had to lie. Compassion and curiosity are far more effective than shame and blame. No one learns through shame, but they do grow with compassion. I wouldn't continue being friends with someone deceptive like that, but if you tell her that you know, she will probably cut you off. It's a shitty situation and I'm sorry. Maybe it would be good to talk to a friend that doesn't know her and take a huge step back to see what you will do next. That is a pathological liar who the rabbit hole probably goes so far beyond what you even imagine is frightening. Be very, very careful. I cried after my 18F boyfriend, 20M, and I did it even though it was consensual. I can't stop thinking about this, and I hope that posting on here might make things more clear for me. My boyfriend and I were at a party a few days ago, and about halfway through we left to get some air. We ended up making out against a random wall outside, which I know is not smart, but we were both tipsy. I kept half-heartedly telling him how we shouldn't out here, but he wouldn't really listen. At some point he tried to take my top off, and that's when I pushed him and told him to stop being an asshole because I told him not out here. We went back and forth and he said how if I want to be such a prude we can continue in his car, so we went to his car to continue. He practically shoved me in and he was being so rough. He's never really this bad, it's usually so much less, but I think it just got intensified by alcohol. I never once actually properly tried to stop him. I told him to stop while grabbing his hands a couple of times, but it didn't really work. And I know if I really didn't want it I should have tried harder to stop him, and I shouldn't have ever let anything start in the first place. Why no? So anyways we did it and he was setting his clothes and I told him I wanted to go home now, but he said how we just got here in ECT. So I was like whatever, right, and we were headed back to the party. While we were walking over there he was fixing my shirt for me and my hair, and my makeup too since I had some mascara and lipstick smudged. Again he wasn't exactly being gentle with it, so I told him to stop and he said how he's just making sure everyone in there won't be able to tell what we just did and stuff. He wasn't even being mean about it, but I started crying, like full on sobbing. Again I think it was the drinks because I never ever cry that easily. He was immediately so much nicer and apologetic. He pulled me into his arms. He kept saying how he knows he's an idiot when he drinks and he never meant to make me cry. He did ask me if it was about what we did in the car earlier, but I never said yes or no in that moment. I ended going home with my friend because obviously I didn't really want to be around him. That wasn't consensual. Not if you told him to stop. It doesn't matter how forceful you are, stop means stop, no means no. I never once actually properly tried to stop him. I told him to stop while grabbing his hands a couple of times. You told him to stop and you grabbed his hands. I consider that pretty straightforward, telling him to stop. He didn't listen and that's where it crossed some serious lines. I don't think he's a good person to be with. I told him to stop while grabbing his hands a couple of times. That is properly trying to get him to stop. Oh honey, you did say no. Numerous times. Saying stop and moving his hands is saying no. Pushing him away from you is saying no. You did not consent to any of that bar maybe the initial making out. You clearly did not want to do it. Him apologizing means nothing. It would have been so easy to stop and not do anything he wasn't certain you wanted. But he didn't, he was selfish and kept going because he wanted to. He was rough because he didn't care if you were into it or not, he just wanted to get off. Drinking doesn't excuse that. If he knows he's like this when he drinks, then he should never drink again. Break up with him. This isn't what happens in healthy loving relationships. This was not consensual at all. He raped you. He kept saying how he knows he's an idiot when he drinks. He did ask me if it was about what we did in the car earlier. He knows what he did wasn't consensual. How do I, 25F, reveal my kink to my 27M husband when he is not taking me serious? So I caught my husband jacking off in the shower and I acted like I didn't see him doing it so he wouldn't be embarrassed. It was hot. I can't get the image out of my head and I get so wet every time I'm thinking about it. I didn't realize I had a kink for that type of stuff or any kinks at all. And man, have I fucked him every night since then. I cannot hold my composure. How do I reveal this kink to him? I did bring it up to him that I saw him doing it and it turned me on and he just laughed it off and isn't taking me serious. We have been together for 8 years and I would love to have an up-close view of him jacking off and for him to fuck my throat. OMG. I'm shy, help lol. Girl, you could fall into a bucket of dicks and come out sucking your thumb. Tell him, get some ice water, sister. I don't have any advice. I am just here because I am happy for the guy. Why is everything a kink now? Why can't we just use the word erotic? You're not alone. Many have liked to see our guy masturbate just as he wants to see us do it. I want to watch you masturbating. I think it's hot. I honestly don't see how anything could possibly go wrong in this situation. My M41 wife, F40, of 20 years, admitted to one-time affair years ago. How do I regain trust? Trying to talk through some other issues this past weekend, my wife admitted to cheating on me with a mutual friend 6 years ago. What she told me was that we were in a rough patch and she wanted to do something that would force an end to the relationship. She made the decision to cheat on me and went out of her way to accomplish it. She did this with someone we both grew up with but a much closer friend of hers. This is a person who we would both visit on trips back home. Thinking back to Christmases playing board games with him during visits back home after this incident is another aspect of this that is killing me. My wife is, or at least I had thought, a very open and honest person, almost to a fault. I have always had 100% trust and faith in her. I don't want to throw away our 20-year relationship, but I am truly hurt and do not know how I can regain that trust in her now. She told me she felt immediate regret and bottled it up until the other day. I am sure this secret has led to more issues between us since. I do believe her it was a one-time thing, and I really want to believe it won't happen again. Waiting 6 years to tell me feels almost as painful as the act itself. For those of you both that have accepted your partner's mistakes, how did you work to build that trust back? What options are there other than the extreme ends of ending it completely or forgiving her and going back to status quo? I am not looking to punish her, but just accepting her apology and moving on doesn't seem fair to my pain either. You don't need to regain trust. She does. She is the one who cheated, and then she lied about it for 6 years. Even if you want to trust her again, it doesn't mean that you will be able to. Rebuilding trust after an affair is a long process that requires total honesty, communication, and therapy. You can't just forgive and forget. You need to address the deeper issues. As far as your emotions go, the affair just happened. I would treat it accordingly. Call a lawyer, file for divorce, put the onus on her to reconcile. This gives you some measure of control that she took from you by betraying her vows. You can always stop the divorce if you become convinced that she is worth trusting again. She wanted to do something that would force an end to the relationship. Give her what she wanted. You don't regain trust, especially after all the times she watched you unwittingly play board games with her AP. I don't want to throw away our 20-year relationship. You're not the one who threw it away, she did. Sounds like she is over the relationship now. Someone who does a confession after a long time, they aren't worried about your feelings. They are worried about themselves and the guilt they held onto, and they probably feel like they can't anymore, so they told you. By telling you now, that means she accepted that it's possible you don't want her anymore. She has nothing to lose, so to speak, but she unloaded on you the guilt. She is free, but you have these ugly feelings, which isn't okay at all. Plus it's your wife, so I know vows are involved, and breaking vows is way worse because she broke your marriage. I dunno man, if there are no kids around I would bounce. You have a lot of good years left to find someone who hasn't whispered, "Come inside me baby," into a guy's ear and then made you play spades with him at Christmas for 6 years straight. Think about that for a minute. Heartless of her. Stop calling him a mutual friend too. That is not your friend. Or hers. He's a terrible person who fucked your wife.